All right, UPSC aspirants, welcome back to your daily deep dive into current affairs. This is for March 26, 2025, Part 1.
Yes, indeed. Back again with you for another deep dive.
So think of this as your quick, focused briefing.
That's right. We're extracting the really essential information you need from a range of sources.
We know your time is valuable, so we're going to cut straight to the insights.
Absolutely. And just a quick reminder, some of what we discussed today might feel familiar to you.
Yeah.
Those are the crucial points for revision.
Exactly. We want to make sure those things really stick.
Absolutely.
So today, we're unpacking developments spanning Indian finance to global security.
Indeed. And for you, the learner, remember, we're aiming to build a connected understanding of these events.
Right.
We've curated this information to provide that clarity and context relevant to your exam preparation.
Okay, so let's get started. Let's dive right into the finance bill. I think this is kind of a key piece of the puzzle when we get the union budget every year.
Oh, absolutely.
What's the core purpose we should keep in mind when we approach this topic?
At its heart, the finance bill is the mechanism the government uses to implement its fiscal proposals.
Okay.
Think of it as the legal authorization for the taxation and expenditure plans outlined in the budget for the upcoming financial year.
Right. So it's not just like a suggestion. It's like, this is how we're going to do it.
It's putting it into action.
Exactly.
And this isn't just something that appears out of thin air, right? There's a constitutional basis for this.
Exactly. Article 110A of the Constitution directly links the finance bill to the presentation of the budget.
Okay.
It's also usually accompanied by a memorandum that provides a detailed explanation of the tax provisions.
Got it. So we hear the term finance bill, and we also hear money bill. Are those essentially the same thing?
Not quite. While all money bills are indeed a type of financial bill, the reverse isn't true.
Oh.
Article 110 provides a very specific definition for what qualifies as a money bill.
It's a bill that deals exclusively with matters like taxation, the government's borrowing activities, and the management of the Consolidated Fund of India.
Okay.
Either money going into it or being spent from it.
So a really specific set of criteria then. So who gets to be the ultimate judge of whether a bill meets those conditions to be a money bill?
That falls under the authority of the Lok Sabha Speaker. They have the power to certify whether a particular bill qualifies as a money bill. And this certification has some pretty significant consequences for its legislative journey.
Because it limits what the Rajya Sabha can do with it.
Precisely. The Rajya Sabha cannot amend or reject a money bill. Their role is limited to offering recommendations, which the Lok Sabha is then free to either accept or disregard. This constitutional design really underscores the primacy of the Lok Sabha in financial matters, doesn't it?
It does. Now, our sources also mentioned different categories of financial bills,
Right.
Type I and Type 2, and this is where it can get a little intricate.
Yeah.
Can you break down those key distinctions for us?
Certainly. Let's begin with financial bill, which is governed by Article 117(1).
Okay.
This type of bill includes some provisions that resemble a money bill.
Right.
It might concern revenue or expenditure, but it also encompasses other legislative elements. A key characteristic is its origin. It can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha, and that too only with the president's recommendation.
Okay.
However, once it's introduced, it largely follows the standard legislative procedure for an ordinary bill. This hybrid nature originating in the Lok Sabha, but then following a more standard legislative path, often reflects the government's strategic prioritization of these bills, giving them an initial advantage.
Okay, so it has a money bill-like start in terms of where it can be introduced, but then it takes a more conventional route through Parliament.
Exactly.
What about financial bill 2?
Financial bill 2 falls under Article 117(3).
Right.
The crucial difference here is that it does not contain any provisions that would classify it as a money bill under Article 110. However, it does include provisions that, if enacted, would affect expenditure from the Consolidated Fund of India. Unlike financial bill, this type of bill can be introduced in either the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha.
Okay.
But it also requires the president's recommendation for its introduction.
Got it. So just to quickly summarize to make sure we've got this, money bills are very narrowly defined.
Yeah.
Can only start in the Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha's role is minimal financial bill. Is a mix.
Yes.
It deals with some financial matters, but also other legislation.
Right.
And it starts in the Lok Sabha financial bill, impacts the Consolidated Fund.
Yes.
But isn't a money bill and can be introduced in either house?
That's a clear and accurate summary. And to really lock in the differences, remember that A money bill has a very tight definition, exclusive introduction in the Lok Sabha, limited Rajya Sabha input, just recommendations, and no possibility of a joint sitting if there's a disagreement. Finance bills, depending on whether they fall under Article 117.1 or 117.3, have broader definitions, different rules for introduction, varying degrees of Rajya Sabha involvement, and the potential for a joint sitting to resolve any deadlock.
Right. So crucial distinctions to keep in mind, especially when thinking about the legislative process around the budget.
Absolutely.
Now let's shift our focus completely. We're going to the global stage.
Okay.
We're looking at the Financial Action Task Force,
Right.
the FATF.
Right.
India is slated to host their private sector collaborative forum next year in Mumbai.
Right.
What exactly is the FATF and why is this upcoming forum significant?
The FATF is an intergovernmental body that really sits at the forefront of global efforts to combat money laundering and the financing of terrorism.
Okay.
Its core mission is to establish international standards and promote the adoption of policies by countries worldwide to tackle these financial crimes at both the national and international level.
So it's really about setting those international rules of engagement
It is.
in this critical area. Where did the FATF originate?
It was established back in 1989 during a G7 summit held in Paris. The initial driving force was a growing international concern about the increasing problem of money laundering.
Okay.
Later, in 2001, in response to the rise of global terrorism, its mandate was expanded to also cover the financing of terrorist activities.
And it's a truly global organization.
It is.
How many member countries are involved and how far-reaching is its influence?
Currently, the FATF has 39 member countries,
Wow.
which include major global economic players like the United States, India, China, and the majority of the European Union nations. However, its influence extends well beyond its direct membership.
Okay.
There's an extensive network of FATF-style regional bodies, or FSRBs, which collectively involve over 180 countries worldwide. These regional bodies work to ensure that the FATF's recommendations are implemented effectively within their specific geographic regions.
So it's a multi-layered structure.
It is.
Central body and then these regional arms working on the ground. What exactly does the FATF do on a day-to-day basis?
They have several key functions. They conduct in-depth research to better understand the latest methods and trends in money laundering and terrorism financing.
Okay.
Based on this research, they develop and promote international standards known as the FATF recommendations,
Right.
which are recognized globally as the benchmark for effective anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing measures. They also undertake rigorous assessments of whether member countries are effectively implementing these standards through regular peer evaluations, and they publish reports to raise awareness about emerging threats and highlight best practices in the field.
And what happens if a country doesn't adhere to those rules?
Right.
What are the consequences if a nation fails to comply with the FATF standards?
Member countries have an obligation to endorse and actively support the FATF recommendations and undergo these periodic peer evaluations. If a country is found to have significant and persistent deficiencies in implementing these standards, the FATF can take action by publicly identifying them. This can happen in two ways. They might be placed on the gray list, officially known as a jurisdiction under increased monitoring, which signals that the country is working with the FATF to address its identified weaknesses. More severely, a country can be placed on the blacklist, also referred to as a high-risk jurisdiction or non-cooperative country or territory, NCCT.
And who is currently on that blacklist?
As of now, there are 3 countries on the FATF's blacklist: North Korea, Iran, and Myanmar.
Being on that blacklist sounds like it would carry some pretty serious repercussions.
Absolutely. Countries that find themselves on the blacklist face significant consequences. They can be denied financial assistance from major international financial institutions, such as the International Monetary Fund, IMF, the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, ADB, and the European Union, EU. They also often face a range of other international economic and financial restrictions and sanctions, which can severely limit their access to the global financial system. Beyond the financial penalties, there can also be less obvious but still significant reputational and diplomatic costs for countries on the gray or blacklist.
Definitely something nations would want to avoid. Now let's pivot to a different kind of news.
Yeah.
The situation involving members of the Hockey Picky tribe.
Right.
We're hearing reports about some of their members facing difficulties in Gabon. Who exactly are the Hockey Pickies?
The Hockey Pickies are a semi-nomadic tribal community traditionally known for their skills as bird catchers and hunters. Hockey means bird, and Piki means catchers in the Kannada language. They form a significant tribal group within Karnataka, but their presence extends to other western and southern states of India, typically in areas close to forests.
Okay.
According to the 2011 census, their population in Karnataka was around 12,000, with notable concentrations in districts such as Davangere, Mysuru, and Kolar. They are officially recognized as a scheduled tribe in India.
And what can you tell us about their language and cultural traditions?
Their mother tongue is Vagri, which unfortunately UNESCO has classified as an endangered language.
Right.
However, many members of the Haki-Piki community are also multilingual with fluency in languages such as Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, and Hindi. Traditionally, they adhere to Hindu customs and observe various Hindu festivals. Their social structure is organized around clans, and they practice endogamy within these clans with a preference for cross-cousin marriages.
Okay.
Interestingly, their society exhibits matriarchal aspects where the groom traditionally provides dowry to the bride's family. There's also a unique custom where the eldest son in a family traditionally does not cut his hair, which serves as a form of identification within the community.
So it sounds like their traditional way of life has been impacted by the changing times. What are their primary occupations now?
With the increasing enforcement of stricter wildlife protection laws, their traditional occupations of bird catching and hunting have become severely restricted. Consequently, they've largely transitioned to selling a variety of products, including spices, flowers, traditional Ayurveda formulations, and herbal oils. Some also engage in various forms of daily wage labor. They have become particularly known for their deep knowledge of indigenous medicines, a knowledge system developed through generations of living in close proximity to dense forests.
Okay.
Currently, many Haki-Pikis travel both within India and internationally to sell their goods,
Oh, wow.
with Africa being a significant destination due to the demand for more affordable alternatives to conventional Western medicine.
That's fascinating to think of a traditionally nomadic community adapting to global markets in this way.
It is quite remarkable.
All right, so now let's shift our focus to a more strategic area. India's inaugural India-Africa naval exercise known as IOSAGR and AKIM.
Right.
Can you elaborate on what these initiatives entail?
These exercises, IOSAGR and AKIM, represent a significant step forward in bolstering India's maritime security cooperation with nations across the Southwest Indian Ocean region. IOR. IOSAGR, which is short for Indian Ocean Ship Sagar, is scheduled to take place from April 5th to May 8th, 2025. The Indian Navy will be represented by the vessel INS Sunaina, and the exercise will involve participation from 9 African countries, along with Maldives and Sri Lanka. The activities planned include port calls at various key locations such as Dar es Salaam, Nacala, Port Louis, and Port Victoria, as well as joint surveillance operations within the exclusive economic zones, EEZs, of Tanzania, Mozambique, Mauritius, and Seychelles. Importantly, the initiative also includes provisions for training African naval personnel in India.
So, and AKIMA seems to be a related but perhaps distinct component.
Yes. AKIMA stands for Africa-India Key Maritime Engagement, and it's worth noting that AKIMA also signifies unity in Sanskrit. This exercise is being co-hosted by the Indian Navy and the Tanzania People's Defense Force in Dar es Salaam. It'll see participation from 10 African nations, along with India, and is scheduled for 6 days in mid-April, with the inauguration expected to be conducted by India's Defense Minister AKIMA, will consist of both a harbor phase, which will focus on tabletop exercises, and command post exercises centered on issues like piracy and information sharing, as well as seamanship training and VBSS operations.
Oh.
The sea phase will involve practical exercises such as search and rescue operations, small arms, firing drills, helicopter operations, and various maritime security drills.
So both of these initiatives seem clearly aimed at strengthening maritime security in this strategically important region.
Yes.
Is this part of a broader strategic vision for India?
Absolutely. These exercises are in direct alignment with India's security and growth for all in the region, commonly Dana's Sagar vision, which was first articulated in 2015. Sagar aims to foster a free, open, inclusive, peaceful, and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. Key pillars of the Sagar framework include countering China's growing influence by building stronger relationships with nations in the IOR, enhancing maritime security to address threats like piracy and maritime terrorism, building capacity in IOR countries for disaster management and maritime safety, and promoting economic and connectivity projects.
So it's really about all these different elements all working together.
It's a holistic approach.
And India has undertaken other specific initiatives that support this overarching Sagar vision, hasn't it?
Yes, there are several key initiatives that contribute to the Sagar framework. The South Asia Satellite, SAS, enhances communication and provides critical support for disaster response across neighboring countries.
Okay.
Mission Sagar played a crucial role in delivering COVID-19 related medical assistance to Indian Ocean littoral states.
Right.
Vaccine Maitri was instrumental in supplying COVID-19 vaccines to various nations in the region, demonstrating India's role as a reliable partner. And the Caledon Multimodal Transit Project is a significant undertaking aimed at improving connectivity between India, Myanmar, and Southeast Asia, all contributing to enhanced regional cooperation and the advancement of India's strategic goals under SAGAR.
So really painting this picture of India actively and strategically engaging with the Indian Ocean region on multiple fronts.
Absolutely.
Security development and cooperation. Now let's switch gears
Okay.
and delve into the fascinating world of genetics with DNA polymorphism.
All right.
And we're seeing how its analysis through techniques like STR analysis and PCR is leading to significant breakthroughs in forensics and even our understanding of history. What exactly are DNA polymorphisms?
DNA, as you know, is the fundamental genetic material found in our cells, organized into 46 chromosomes with 23 inherited from each parent. These chromosomes contain genes that determine our various traits. Now, DNA polymorphisms are essentially variations in these DNA sequences that occur among different individuals at specific locations within their genomes. These variations are what contribute to the genetic uniqueness of each individual, with the exception of identical twins, and enable scientists to differentiate between people for a wide range of applications, including determining parentage tracing, genetic ancestry, and conducting identity verification through DNA fingerprinting. Think of our DNA as a very long book, and DNA polymorphisms are like slight variations in the spelling of certain words that appear at the same address in different copies of the book.
Interesting. So, and short tandem repeats, or STRs, play a really crucial role in the analysis of these polymorphisms, don't they?
They do indeed. STRs are short sequences of DNA bases, typically ranging from 2 to 6 base pairs in length, that are repeated multiple times in a row at specific locations in our genome.
Okay.
For example, you might have a sequence like JTC that repeats several times.
Right.
Copyline JP. The number of times these short sequences repeat can vary significantly from one person to another, making each individual's STR pattern unique. This high degree of variability makes STRs incredibly valuable in forensic investigations for the purpose of criminal identification and in parentage testing. Because STRs are inherited from our parents, the analysis of these repeating sequences also provides important clues for research into genetic ancestry.
So these short repeating sequences are like unique genetic barcodes that differ in the number of repetitions between individuals.
You can think of it that way.
And how do scientists actually analyze these STRs to create these barcodes?
Right.
That's where the polymerase chain reaction, PCR, comes into play, right?
Exactly. Polymerase chain reaction, or PCR, is a fundamental technique in molecular biology used to amplify specific segments of DNA, essentially making millions of identical copies of even a tiny amount of starting DNA. The process involves a cycle of 3 main steps.
Okay.
First, DNA is extracted from the sample. Then, in a process called denaturation, the DNA strands are heated to a high temperature, causing them to separate. Next, short DNA sequences, called primers, are designed to bind to specific target STR sequences during the annealing step. Finally, an enzyme called DNA polymerase extends the primers by adding complementary DNA bases, creating new DNA strands.
Got it.
The cycle of heating and cooling is repeated many times, leading to a rapid exponential increase in the amount of DNA available for analysis.
Right.
PCR is absolutely crucial for DNA fingerprinting and numerous other applications in biological research and diagnostics.
And the final product of analyzing these amplified STRs is what we commonly refer to as a DNA fingerprint.
That's correct. A DNA fingerprint is a unique genetic profile for an individual based on the variations in the number of repeats at multiple STR loci.
Okay.
It's typically generated using a technique called capillary electrophoresis. In this process, the amplified DNA fragments, which vary in size depending on the number of STR repeats, are separated based on their size and electrical charge as they move through a narrow capillary tube under an electric field. So smaller fragments travel faster than larger ones, creating a distinct pattern of bands or peaks. This pattern, or DNA profile, is highly unique to each person again, with the exception of identical twins who share the same DNA.
Right.
DNA for fingerprinting can be obtained from a wide variety of sources, including teeth bones, blood saliva hair follicles, and even skin cells.
It's remarkable how these minute variations at the molecular level can have such profound applications in fields like law and our understanding of human history.
Absolutely.
Now let's switch gears and talk about history.
Okay.
There's news about Vikramshila University in Bihar being considered for revival following the earlier efforts with Nalanda University.
Right.
What was Vikramshila University, and why is its potential resurgence significant?
Vikramshila University was a renowned ancient center of learning situated in the Bhagalpur district of Bihar on the banks of the sacred Ganges River. It was established by King Dharmapala of the Pala dynasty in the late 8th to early 9th century AD. Interestingly, its founding was partly motivated by a perceived decline in the standards of education at the older and more established Nalanda University.
Interesting.
Vikramshila quickly rose to prominence as a leading center for the study of Tantric Buddhism and Vajrayana Buddhism, with a particular specialization in Tantric practices and occult studies, which distinguished it somewhat from Nalanda's broader academic focus. During its peak, it attracted over 1,000 students and 100 accomplished teachers from various parts of India, and even from across international borders, producing highly influential scholars such as Atisa Dipankara, who played a pivotal role in the dissemination of Buddhism in Tibet.
So what were some of the defining features or characteristics of this ancient university?
Vikramshila boasted a distinctive architectural layout with a central stupa that was surrounded by 208 individual cells designed to house student monks. It also housed a well-stocked library that was even equipped with a unique system